You motherfucking too. It's your boy, Rollo Jenkins. Yo, I want to talk about something I've been trying to do a video on for a minute. I just been having a hard time trying to find any information on it. This dude Al Gay Man. Everybody who listens to my videos pretty much know how I feel about this guy. I wouldn't trust this dude with my worst enemy's fucking life in their hand. But he's just a shady character to me to begin with. Like, what type of dude what type of person would so-called have all this power, but you never ever see from, hear from, or read about anything that this guy says or is doing? There's no you can't even find pictures of this motherfucker. I mean, he ain't got a daughter with Facebook or a brother or auntie, some graduation pictures or something. You can't find shit on this cat. But every time somebody fight, he's God. I want to thank Al Heyman, then I want to thank God, and then my mother and father. So it's just very strange. So what happened though is I did actually come across a guy who says he deals in money market, pretty much. So when this whole NBC deal came through and everybody started jumping on his dick, talking about, oh shit, I knew he had something up his sleeve and da 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 da. I'm wondering, like, why go to free TV now? Like, if I could understand if his most high profile client, his highest paid client, had went to TV or free TV, then that deal would have made sense then. It would have made all the sense in the world. Because as a representative, you're only as good as your best product, right? So we go to all of these fights that he's putting on free TV. And then I hear that he's paying the network from a hedge fund. And I kept hearing the word hedge fund. So I had to do some research, and I read up on the hedge fund a little bit. And this guy that I ran into, I asked him about, what his idea or what he thought a hedge fund was. And what he told me was pretty much what I got from what I read as well. A hedge fund is basically a non-public stock, pretty much. Just to keep it simple. It's basically a stock, but it's for invitees only. So pretty much what this guy did is he got a bunch of wealthy motherfuckers who got so much cash that they could afford to lose millions and not bat an eye, and invest in an idea that he has. And his idea is to eventually create a UFC style league in boxing, Now that sounds good and it sounds great in theory. Like I said, it sounds good in theory. But in reality, you have to consider what it is he's trying to do and what product he's trying to do it with. Now, boxing has been around for over, in this country, for close to a century and a half. Well over a century. So the product itself hasn't changed. Just everything else around the product has changed. And I can give you numerous examples of how once you are established as a leader, for instance, in something, one way or another, then it's hard to knock you off that pedestal. But once you're knocked off of that pedestal of being the leader or the number one, then it's a lot harder to get back to being number one. Now, let me give you an example of something or an area where this would be applicable. In the early turn of the century, boxing, horse racing, and baseball were the three major sports. They ruled. Now, we're talking the turn of the century, 1900. There is no TV. Nobody has TVs in their homes. There's no TVs. You have radios, and you have about 5 stations. You got, your typical white music stations, your typical urban music stations, and you got your news and whatever. This is radio now. So we got sports broadcasts on radio. You got baseball. You got boxing, and you have horse racing. Now, at the turn of the century, football was new. It was completely new, just started, and it was only in the form of college. There was no professional football. Basketball was new. There was no professional basketball league. There was no television at all. So during the development of television, which presumably was only available to the elite at when it first started, you can only imagine that just a handful of people, the very wealthy, had TVs in their homes and not much content. So once they were able to do live broadcasts and to televise things such as a boxing match, that opened up a whole new arena for boxing. So once you got to the 40s, where television started to become affordable and popular and everybody could have televisions, boxing was popular as shit. You got, maybe the last leg of Joe Louis's career, possibly. You got the middle and end of Sugar Ray Robinson's career. You got the beginning of Ali's career, the beginning of Sugar Ray Leonard, and by the time Sugar Ray Leonard comes around in his era of boxing, live sports are the shit. You got Monday Night Football and Sunday Night Football. You got a handful of basketball games here and there, and you got boxing, and you got baseball. So toward the the late 70s, you had cable television, which was at the time like television was when it first came out. It was only available and affordable to the elite. Now, in this day and age, everybody has cable just as much as everybody has a cell phone. So when boxing lost its popularity to other sports such as football, basketball, baseball. It's gonna you can't get your edge back. You can't overtake football now. There's nothing you can do as a sport that's way older than football to become more popular than football again. The only thing that could ever possibly overtake football now is a completely new product. Something new that has never been seen before. Something else. So when the UFC was developed, the UFC was new. I mean, two men fighting one-on-one wasn't new, but the mixed martial arts aspect of it and the presentation of it was new. And it was something that people could gravitate toward. So the UFC is okay. It's never going to be as popular as football or basketball, but I think it'll always have its niche audience, just as will boxing. It'll always have its niche audience. But the thing about boxing, which is fucked up, is boxing isn't getting new fans. Most of the fans that I know who are really into boxing are my age and older. Now, like I said in a previous video, you got a few young cats on here, you know, your cue balls and JT that I know of, you know, but I don't know a lot of guys, you know. I know a lot of younger men, but the motherfuckers don't talk about boxing. They know football and they know basketball, but they don't really fuck with baseball, and they definitely don't really mess with boxing. They just don't. That's just what it is, you know? So, when you take this deal that Al Heyman has with NBC and Fox or whatever, Spike TV, and somebody said, or I've been hearing, that he might be putting boxing on BET. Well, this is the thing. If you paying to put the sport on, then any network really would let you put it on. They ain't losing. I mean, you would have to literally have a shitty network. I mean, I just don't see what network wouldn't let you put on a product if you're going to pay them to put the product on. The NFL makes over $2 billion annually. I'm sorry, $3 billion annually in TV rights from the various networks. If I'm not mistaken, from ESPN, ABC, they get $1 billion alone from them. So, what's weird and odd is, why would a dude who's so-called getting his fighters more money than anybody else is making, why would he take them off of premium cable, put them on free TV, and pay the networks to pay them? I mean, to put the product on. It doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, it almost don't make sense. So, what I'm thinking, and this is just my theory, I haven't read anything that, you know, to support this, but this is the only thing that I could come up with this hedge fund that he has. So, let's say he has 5 billionaire friends who all were willing to put in $20 million, no, let's say $50 million of their own money. $50 million apiece. It's $250 million, right? So over a span of, let's just say 5 years, He's promising these guys $50 billion plus 15. So he's promising them $65 million back, right? So in order for this to work, because he's paying the networks to put his product on their network. So the only thing I can see is maybe he gets to keep all of the advertisement from the commercials, and hope to break even at the end. But in all reality, the only way that this works is if after this first year that the ratings are so high and it becomes so popular that the network is willing to pay at the very least in 5 years $100 million. Because we got to think, everybody got to get paid. The investors got to get paid. The fighters got to get paid. The promoters got to get a little chunk. He has to get some, of course, and everybody else associated with it. So, in order for that $250 million to make sense, he would have to make another $250 million in order for it to make sense, and to pay all of the, like I said, all of the expenses, all of these fighters. Because in 5 years, how much money would Adrian Broner and Keith Thurman, Peter Quillen, Deontay Wilder, when you add all these guys' money up in 5 years, how much money is that? Especially when you got these guys turning down $1 million over here, $2 million over here, $5 million over here. So you got to make it all make sense for them. And I see it being a bust. But the only possible way that he could have leverage motherfuckers out of their cash is somehow attaching this gay weather faggy out shit onto it somehow. Because outside of that one particular unicorn Dungeons and Dragons fairy tale fight, nothing else comes close to the realm of why it would make sense for him to take his product off of premium cable with Showtime and HBO, who pull in monthly over $100 million a month, who have almost bottomless pockets to pay. Why he would take the product from there, put it on a distribution platform where he's paying the platform to distribute the product, as opposed to being paid for his product for the platform to distribute. Nothing else comes close to the realm of being able to generate enough money, interest, and excitement where it would make sense at all. Now, I don't know how that shit will work, because there is no way in the world that even with that fight, even if you put that fight, the Fairy Tale Dungeons and Dragons shit, on regular TV, on NBC or CBS or ABC, it doesn't generate the amount of money that pay-per-view would. So I'm wondering, is this dude really trying to make a profit for these fighters? Or is there some big scheme at the end where he somehow dupes some investors with possibly an IPO and then he jumps out? So I believe that somehow, some way, he's trying to. I mean, we already know that he used, the one guy as his leverage to sign up a bunch of fighters. Just sign up a bunch of motherfuckers. He charges less as a manager or advisor or whatever the fuck he categorizes himself as when it comes to these fighters and their contracts. But he signed so many fighters that, it's almost like when I was younger, I used to always wonder why record stores, when you had your little mom and pop record stores back in the day, you know what I'm saying? Like, I live in Detroit, so we had it was a store called Chantonique's, Justin's Music, where they only sold music, and there every now and again you might get an artist to come through and do a promotional thing where their album is being released and they might sign autographs or whatever, but all of those places are gone now, But a new CD at one of those spots costs you $18, $19 sometimes. And I always say, well, why in the fuck would I go there and buy it when I can go to Best Buy and get it for $11.99? Well, see, the big difference was when Best Buy sold it, they could sell it and only make $1 off of it because they had 27,000 other products that they could make $1 off of. Justin's Music only sold CDs and music and shit. So they needed to make $6 or $7 or $8 off of every CD that they sold. Because that's all that they sold. So Al Heyman, his percentage as a manager can be much lower if he got 5 times or 10 times more fighters than any other manager in the game. Obviously, you won't be able to get the kind of one-on-one time that another manager could give you based on the fact that he got way too many fighters. But if he got a team doing the, working shit out, and all of these fighters are fighting and he's getting a smaller cut, but he got so many more fighters, then it kind of balances out. And if you as a fighter, you saying, well, if this dude got the highest paid fighter, and possibly I could become that too, plus he's taking less money than any other manager is, why wouldn't you go sign with him? In theory, that makes sense. But now, in this juncture of the game, when the shit finna all come to fruition, I don't see how, when all of these fighters were so-called getting their highest paydays, how are they gonna get their highest payday when he's paying the network to put on the product now? I would like to see what Keith Thurman is getting paid and Guerrero are getting paid to fight each other now. Andre Berto, he got $1 million to fight Freddie Hernandez on HBO. How much is he getting to fight Josecito Lopez now? Adrian Broner, how much is he getting to fight John Molina now? Because I haven't heard any numbers being discussed as of late. So what I really think is going to happen, that this product is going to fail, and it's going to fail miserably. Because back in the 80s, when Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns were fighting on ABC, the NCAA tournament wasn't a big ass thing from March to mid-April. The baseball all-star game didn't matter that much. It just didn't. Hockey wasn't on TV back then at all, except for maybe the Olympics. Football definitely wasn't king. football each and every Sunday, the regular season, and the Super Bowl by far is king of live TV. That wasn't around. There was no American Idol, no Scandal, The Voice, Netflix, Hulu, DVRs. None of this shit existed. So we could never go back to 1980 with boxing. It's not gonna happen. It's not there. It's not gonna happen. And also, another thing that fucked up boxing was the Las Vegas thing. I get it that everybody wanted to go there because of the taxes and all of that shit, but Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran fought twice. 2 huge fights. Neither one of them were in Vegas. The biggest upset in the history of sports happened in Tokyo, Japan. Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. So that in itself has taken everybody else's invested interest away, because you take all the big fights to the same location. One of the reasons that the Super Bowl is very popular is because so many cities have had a chance to experience it. Arizona, Los Angeles, San Francisco got it coming up next year. Miami, Jacksonville, Florida, Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Detroit, New York, Indianapolis. All of these cities had a chance to host the Super Bowl, the biggest event in American culture right now. So, as much as I would like to see this whole NBC thing sort of succeed, it's too many things working against it for it to. So I think Al Heyman may have been smart enough to swindle a couple of guys out of some millions. You know, if you know a couple billionaires, $20 million ain't shit to them. 50, hell, maybe even 100. Especially with the chance that they might get that 100 back. But I just don't see it working. It's just too many forces working against it. And then also, let's not forget that we still have HBO and Showtime, who are still heavily invested in boxing programming. Boxing is not leaving off of HBO. We're always gonna be back in this fucking never-ending wheel of fantasy fights, because the Mayweather Pacquiao Unicorn Fairy Tale Dungeons and Dragon ass fight is just the first of many. It's just the first of many. I mean, think about this. If Adrian Broner stays at 140 for a little bit, he could never be the man if Mikey Garcia is knocking motherfuckers out at 140. Never. Why in the fuck will we never see Brandon Rios versus Victor Ortiz? No matter how many fights they lose, how often they might look shitty, that's always going to be a fight that us fight fans would be willing to watch based on the history that they have with each other. Tim Bradley, a whole slew of fighters that he probably ain't never going to fight. And the list just goes on and on. On and on. How in the fuck can anybody remotely close to middleweight, both Charlos, Laura, Austin Trout, when all of these guys move up to middleweight, How in the fuck can any of these guys be called, consider, or feel like they can be the champ if they never go fight Gennady Golovkin? And I know the first thing people are gonna say is, well, he could go join PBC and fight all of these guys. Yeah, he could, but why should he have to? And especially if PBC is offering $1 million and HBO is offering $5 million, why in the fuck would he? Don't make sense. I just want somebody who is very pro Al Heyman to explain to me how this shit is gonna work. You're taking the same old boxing, the same shitty sport that a whole lot of people just aren't interested in. Listen, if you go to Buffalo Wild Wings on a Saturday and the Kentucky, it's Kentucky playing in a SEC conference tournament, they're not gonna turn off basketball for some fucking boxing. They're not gonna turn it off college basketball for Keith Thurman and Robert Guerrero. You're gonna have 20 college basketball games going. And even if you turn this shit on, if you got 500 sets of eyes in the building and you got college basketball on at the same time as Keith Thurman and Robert Guerrero, I'm going to be 1 out of 4 motherfuckers watching Robert Guerrero instead of the college basketball game. That's just if they just happen to turn that shit on. If they happen to turn Notre Dame versus Florida State off to put on boxing. If somebody around that bitch could convince them to turn that shit on. If you had Buffalo Wild Wings or Hooters or Twin Peaks or wherever the fuck your favorite bar and grill is. So, all in all, I know that, a lot of people were excited about this shit. They think it's a good deal. And boxing finna come back. Nah, it's not. I don't think so. It's not. Not at all. But I could be wrong. But time will tell. It's your boy, Rollo Jenkins. Holla at your boy.
Money is the motivation. Money is the motivation.